Hey everyone, just got back seeing Gladiator 2 with my best friend. Wanted to give you my takes on the movie, some things I liked, some things I didn't like. For those of you that don't know, Gladiator 2 is the follow-up to Gladiator, the original, that took place in 2000 by Ridley Scott. This one also by Ridley Scott. This one does not have Russell Crowe in it. Bummer. But that's okay, he's doing big things, he's well off. Anyway, this movie centers around an actor named Paul Mescal, not to be confused with Pedro Pascal, also in this movie, and they are opposing figures in this movie. Anyway, Paul Mescal is actually the son of the character of Maximus from the original movie, who was played by Russell Crowe, who we see as a child in the original movie. Anyway, this movie starts out with Paul Mescal's character, who's originally named Hano in the movie. I'll explain that a little later. Living in a northern African town called Numidia. He's thriving, living his life with his wife, and he has his whole military service that he's helping to run. When Rome invades, and they destroy everyone and take over, and they kill Hano's wife, setting off the events of him wanting revenge against General Acacia, who is Pedro Pascal in this movie. Unfortunately, Hano is taken captive, taken back to Rome. He's made a prisoner, but they do this little process when they get to Rome to see which prisoners are actually worthy of being gladiators. When Hano proves himself, Denzel Washington's character, Macrinus, I was so close, Macrinus takes note of him and decides he wants to make him one of his gladiators. Brings him into the fold, kind of puts him through a little bit of training. Hano does really well, really quickly, gets a lot of notice by a lot of people, including the two emperors of the time, the twin emperors. One of them is played by Joseph Quinn, the other one by Fred Heckinger. Their names are, I'm going to butcher them, I know I am. They're Geta and Caracalla. So they are the twin emperors of the time. So they take note of him, and for them, this gladiator thing is kind of a sport. But for Denzel's character, Macrinus, this is a way to move up in the ranks, with his goal being to eventually overthrow Rome. A lot of backhanded stuff comes to play. We start to see Connie Nielsen's character, who's actually now married to Cassius, who is Pedro Pascal's character. As you remember, she previously was in love with Russell Crowe's character in the original one, and they had a child together. Anyway, this is obviously going to lead to an opposing issue with the man she's now married to is the same man that killed her son's wife. A crazy series of events takes place to where General Acacius falls from grace, and the two emperors, at the guidance of Denzel Washington's character, put him in the Colosseum to fend for his life against the gladiators. Not just any gladiator, you guessed it. The gladiator that is technically his stepson, I guess you would say. They never actually qualify if he's married to Connie Nielsen's character or not. You just kind of assume they are. It's Roman times. They may not be. I don't know. Common law. I don't know. Anyway, they get into the ring, and all of a sudden they have this epiphany. Pedro Pascal's character all of a sudden doesn't want to fight anymore. He knows who this guy is, Hano. He's discovered that he is, in fact, Lucius, who is the name that Connie Nielsen verifies is her son's actual name, and they have a little exchange where he screams at her to get out of the room, but that verifies that he is her son. Anyway, back to the Colosseum. They have this little altercation where they're fighting initially, they're beating each other up. Pedro Pascal's character gives up, falls to his knees, and says, I know who you are, I deserve this, blah, blah, blah. And then Paul Mescal's character throws his knife down, even against the wishes of the two emperors, who are very upset at this. They launch a full attack at Pedro Pascal's character because they want him dead. They gave the thumbs down in the Colosseum, and they don't like to be disobeyed. They kill that character. Unfortunately, Pedro Pascal's character is very loved by the entire Roman Empire, and seeing the two emperors kill him sets off this series of events, these riots, where they start rioting in the streets. And in the back, we see that Denzel Washington's character has been pulling the strings on everything and wanted this whole thing to transpire. So he helps take both of the emperors under his wing, and they start to trust him. A few things lead to another, and Denzel Washington takes control of their Congress, if you will, and eventually kills one of the twins. He kills Joseph Quinn's character, and then kills the other one, Fred Heckinger's character, in the Colosseum while they're watching the gladiators. At the end of the story, Paul Mescal's character and Denzel Washington's character are at a complete face-off. with their two militaries behind each of them. Ultimately, Paul Mescal's character wins out, and Denzel Washington's character is slain in the river, and that's pretty much the end of the movie. Now, in terms of my reaction to the movie, I would say overall, it was a pretty good action movie. The movie opens up with a really big war scene, lots of blood, lots of gore. I would really say from that standpoint, if you're looking for a just a complete wartime movie, it's definitely going to fulfill that void for you. Very bloody, very action intense. I would say overall, the story does hold your hand a bit in terms of trying to figure out the plot. They don't really give you a lot of room to make any guesses about who Hanno is, because when the movie first opens, you don't really know his character, and you don't know his relation to the previous Gladiator movie, or to Maximus, or to Connie Nielsen's character at the very beginning. But as it moves through, they have a lot of just suggestions that, oh, this is the son that they lost. So they don't really give you a lot of chance to figure it out. They just do it on their own, which is fine. That's not the kind of movie it was. It was meant to be an action movie. You're not supposed to be trying to form a thesis on this movie, so I get it. The roles themselves were pretty good. Pedro Pascal is going to be good in whatever he does. He did good in his role. It was a tough role because he starts out as the original villain because he kills off Hanno's entire family, his wife, everything. So you hate him at the beginning, and then quickly you start to see he is a good guy because he goes home. He's the family man. He's the good husband to Connie Nielsen's character. He's trying to form a coup and take over the two emperors of the time and trying to bring priests to Rome. So you start to like him. And even at the end, as he dies in the Colosseum, you find yourself really rooting for him. So I think Pedro Pascal did a really good job of having that duality in a character. He's not all good, he's not all bad. He had a little bit of each, and he showed that throughout. I would say Paul Mescal, who played Hanno / Lucius, he did a fair enough job. I just feel like he didn't bring enough aggression to the role. At the beginning, he has this great venture. He has a mission. He's going to avenge his wife, and when he gets the chance to avenge her, he just throws his knife down. And I'm like, did you forget that this man killed your wife? Regardless of the fact that he's married to your mother, you only know that this man killed your wife. So for me, I thought that was a bit of a letdown. But he went all out on Denzel Washington's character in the end, which is interesting because Denzel Washington never did anything to him. So except there was a part at the end, before the very end of the movie, Denzel Washington's character, in an attempt to create complete chaos, takes a bow and arrow and does kill Hanno's mother. So never mind, he had a reason to kill him. I would say the standout role for me was 100,000% Denzel Washington. Very unexpected role. I actually was very surprised to see him in this role. There was a lot of, I would say, backlash in casting him, because I think a lot of people have this idea of what the Roman Empire looked like. They don't actually know the history, that there were plenty of people that looked like Denzel Washington in that time, and in great positions of power, actually. But more importantly than that, it was just knowing Denzel Washington and his character today, and seeing him in that role. It was so interesting. It was so unique and fresh because he didn't really put on a fake accent. He sounded like how Denzel Washington sounds in this character, and it was actually excellent. He played such a good villain. He got into your trust, and you found yourself rooting for him initially. Even when you found out that he was the mastermind behind the downfall of Rome and the destruction of the two emperors, you still found yourself wanting him to win because it's almost like his values, they were appropriate. This is something that you would want freedom for all your citizens, and you wouldn't want tyranny. So it was interesting to be rooting for him in the end. Obviously, you knew he wasn't going to win because he's not the protagonist. But I would say he was the standout for me. He definitely gave a performance reminiscent of his Training Days performance. It was that just conniving cutthroat, just an excellent performance. I would say he was the standout. I would say for this movie in general, overall, I went into it with no expectations, actually. It was part of the Glickid theming that they've been doing for this season. So it was a smart theming because I think everyone wanted to see Wicked. And then there was a void for people who don't like musicals, who don't like magical fantasy, who do want more of that adult blood gore. And this filled that role. Overall, I enjoyed it. I didn't find myself bored. I didn't find myself waiting for it to be over. It was an enjoyable movie. The plot was not super involved or invested. It was pretty straightforward, actually. But I enjoyed the movie. I would say if you want a movie with some action, with some violence, with some adult themes, go see this movie. It was enjoyable. I have really nothing bad to say about it. If I had to give it a prescription, I'd say 8 out of 10. It was enjoyable overall. That's it for now.